What is up? A very, very overwhelmed GoodMicWork back at you with episode 420. Haha, I know. WrestleMania 33 is in the books. And I think we all just collectively watched the end of the career of The Undertaker. And we called it. We kind of smelled it. It felt like it this time. It really, really did. So it should come as no surprise to us what we saw on WrestleMania, especially in the Undertaker match. But, you know, I told you in my last commentary that despite the fact that this is not really being built as The Undertaker's retirement or his final match, I think it still has the chance to be special. And I think it's pretty safe to say that WrestleMania, the ending of WrestleMania, was pretty goddamn special. And tomorrow night on Raw will probably be more of the same. So I'm going to run through the card here, but I had planned all night to kind of start at the beginning, start off with the kickoff show and roll right through it. But in light of the events of the main event, I figured we better start with that, and then maybe I'll backtrack a little bit. First of all, before we get started, I apologize for the different sounding audio. You guys know that sometimes when I do post-pay-per-view reviews, I have to go in a different room of the house and use a different microphone. So this audio is not my favorite, so I apologize for that. But this shouldn't be a too terribly long commentary anyway, because I have very few notes written down. I just have the list of the matches and the winners, and I'm going to roll off a lot of my memories right off the top of my head. I'm going to give you a more detailed review on the entire WrestleMania weekend after we watch the post-Mania Raw and SmackDown shows, and I come up here with my normal review. I'll probably get much more in-depth on WrestleMania, including the fallout on both shows of WrestleMania and all the new stuff that we've been seeing and all the stuff going on, and plenty of opinions on that. And speaking of opinions, the WrestleMania main event, there's going to be a lot of them, and there's going to be a lot of them going around YouTube. To me, when I think about the career of The Undertaker and I think about how young I was when he started, I was just a child. I was an early teen. And, you know, it just blows my mind that he's been in the WWE alone for 27 years. He debuted in 1990. And he was wrestling 4 or 5 years before that. So this is an incredibly long career and one of the best this business has ever seen. I've made mention time and time again over the years that I feel like The Undertaker's legacy is right up there with Andre the Giant. When I think of the two biggest figures in WWE, people that are the most widely respected, those are the only two I can think of. I mean, Hogan would normally be up there, but, you know, his life is such a traumatic mess that, you know, he's kind of fallen out of that favor of being, you know, the Babe Ruth or whatever. I've always called The Undertaker the Godfather. And when I think of statue-worthy people in the WWE, I think of Andre and I think of Taker. And it's a shame that his career finally has to come to an end, but I'm glad that it did. I mean, at least it appears that it did. I think it's pretty safe to say after what we saw there with him taking off the gloves and the hat and leaving it right there in the ring, that I was fine up until that point. I think when the camera zoomed in on the pile of clothes with the hat on top, I think that's when I really lost it. Up until then, I was actually handling it just fine. I was appreciative. I was proud of The Undertaker. And I just kind of reflected back on his career near the end of that match. And like I said, for all the opinions that are going to be swirling around the internet about this main event, I don't care about that tonight. You're not going to hear that from me, not tonight. You know, I think they just barely exceeded expectations. I wasn't expecting the match to be very much. I mean, The Undertaker, you can just look at him and tell how hard it is for him to get around. But he pulled off the performance of a lifetime. He gave it his all tonight. He took some serious bumps. The spear through the announce table was pretty sick looking. You know, and he sold pretty well, and Roman did a good job, like him or not, of selling for Undertaker. I mean, he was really flying around and bouncing around and all of that. And overall, I thought the match was about as good as we could have expected it to be. I couldn't imagine it being any better than that. I didn't think those guys were going to go out there and tear the house down or anything like that. And I always felt, and I was asked that on Twitter a couple of times too, about my concern for how the in-ring match is going to be between the two of them. And my response was, I think it's going to be secondary. I think, you know, much like Hogan and Rock, you know, look at that match without the crowd. Look at that match without the epic crowd involvement at WrestleMania 18. You put that very same match in an empty arena, the match is going to suck. But what made that match so great was the moment, and especially the crowd involvement there. And to me, I felt like the Undertaker match was going to be the same way. And regardless of how good or shitty the match is, the only thing that we're going to take away from it, and the only thing we're going to remember, is that it marked the last night that The Undertaker competed in the ring. And his big send-off at the end, Jim Ross calling the match. And, you know, overall, it was a very beautiful moment, I feel. You know, yeah, you can make an argument that they could have done his retirement a different way. We kind of expected the day that The Undertaker finally does leave us, that it would be maybe a bigger presentation than this, but maybe that's not what Undertaker or Vince wanted. I mean, Undertaker, for him to end it like that, to me, that was the appropriate way. That's just the way a legend like The Undertaker would want to go out. Vince, I'm broken down. I cannot wrestle anymore. This year has got to be my last match. Let me put over your top guy. Unfortunately, a good portion of the audience doesn't like the top guy, but who fucking cares? That's not what it's about, at least tonight. We can discuss the Roman Reigns victory and everything in later days and later commentaries, and I definitely will. But for, the outcome of the match, yeah, fans booed it, but what did you expect? You want Undertaker to win in his last night just because you don't like his opponent? That wouldn't make sense after the career that The Undertaker has had. He's made a career on no selling and being impervious to pain and sitting up from everybody's finisher. I think the least that The Undertaker can do on his way out the door is put over the next big dog, and that's kind of what they build it as. I mentioned that weeks, even months ago, that maybe this could be a passing of the torch. This was my yard, it's your yard now. The fans puke at that because of Roman Reigns, but I kind of smelled that that's where they were going. It kind of appeared to be that way. So, I was like, when you think of it like that, that's the way a professional would go out. The problem is Roman Reigns has got so much controversy surrounding him that I'm worried that this will tarnish it a little bit for some fans, but it's not going to tarnish it for me. Hell, on one hand, you could even say that somebody's got to retire The Undertaker. Might as well be somebody that the fans already hate anyway, because you would imagine that person might get some heat for doing that. And Roman gets a shit ton of heat as it is from the fans. I don't think this is going to make the fans cheer him anymore. That's for sure. So, I think the WWE is aware of what's going on with Roman Reigns, and it appears like they want to make the boos worse. Now, if they want to do a heel turn in the future, great. I'm all for it. I think Roman Reigns would make a badass heel. But I'm almost glad that they didn't do it here at WrestleMania, because I had a feeling that it was going to be Taker's last match, and I think we all know the way the show needed to end, and that is with The Undertaker's music playing and him walking away and leaving the ring for the last time. I would have much rather preferred that than to have Roman Reigns turn heel, beat the shit out of The Undertaker, and leave him laying through a pile of tables and chairs, and the fireworks go off with Roman Reigns standing in the ring celebrating with his music playing. I didn't want to see that. Heel or not, I did not want to see that outcome. If this was going to be it for The Undertaker, we needed that as fans. We needed to say goodbye to him, and this WrestleMania gave us that. So regardless of what you think about the match, regardless of what you think about his opponent, the one thing to take away from this is that one of the biggest, if not the biggest icon in the history of WWE just wrestled for the last time. And I just want, sometimes I think young fans don't appreciate that. I remember being younger and not taking Terry Funk's retirement seriously, and I guess nobody did because he wrestled for another 20 years after that. But a lot of retirements, I wish I would have appreciated them more when I was younger. And I think for young kids today, I don't know if they could truly grasp how important The Undertaker was to the WWE. I mean, he stuck with them through thick and thin. I mean, WWE was in a shitload of trouble a few years after Undertaker came in, and he remained loyal to Vince. He could have gone the same direction as everybody else and gone to WCW and raked in a shit ton of cash, but he stayed loyal no matter what. He had the respect of every single person in the locker room, no matter what era you're in. I mean, hell, even Andre has got people that hate his guts. Even people say Andre was a dick, and he was known to do a few not so great things. So even Andre, I don't think, has the respect of the locker room that The Undertaker does. I mean, he's always talked about very fondly. Young guys especially respect the shit out of him. It's like going to talk to God. I mean, imagine, if you're backstage and you're 23 years old and you've just signed a developmental deal and they brought you to TV for some reason, and you're walking down the hall and The Undertaker passes you. I mean, what if you ever got a chance to talk to him, just to spend 5 minutes with him, pick his brain a little bit, soak in his knowledge, and just the experience of having him there. It's going to be few and far between these days. And I still think we're going to see The Undertaker around. I think he'll do some appearances. He'll probably come in like a lot of legends do. But his days of being in the ring, I guess, are behind him. And one can only assume that next year in New Orleans, he will be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I'll be in New Orleans. So if I couldn't be there for his last match, at least I will be there to see him go in to the WWE Hall of Fame, because his career meant the world to me. It meant the absolute world to me. As a guy, as a WWE guy back in the day, I was more WWE than I was WCW. He was one character that I appreciated. And to me, he was the unbeatable icon. He was the man. And there were very few guys that could touch him as far as, his legacy goes. Really nobody. And his run in the WWE, my God, spanned almost 30 years. And that's pretty amazing. The same character, all the different ways he changed up his character over the years, keeping things fresh. The fans never got tired of him. I mean, the fans never booed during his matches ever. They never booed his promos. They never disrespected him. They never treated him like shit. They would stand up and applaud every single time he came out there, no matter what year it was. And that's pretty rare, you know, for a lot of wrestlers. Shit, even when Undertaker was a heel, even when he was the asshole American badass heel, fans still really had a hard time booing him or hating him. I mean, maybe some did, but, you know, he didn't have that heat of that hated guy. And he always kept his shit together, never got in any trouble, and was just always just a company guy, man. He always was. So, you know, we've seen the end of The Undertaker. It's very, very sad. It definitely overwhelmed me more than I expected it to when it was all going down. I was like, wow, it's really over. Let me just say, I'm glad that I was in the room watching it by myself. That's for sure. And there was dust in the air, motherfuckers. There was something in my eye. I wasn't crying. Get it straight. But I just want to thank The Undertaker for an amazing career, entertaining me for nearly 30 years. I remember literally everything he did. I was watching the Survivor Series on pay-per-view the night that he debuted, and I've watched literally probably every single one of his televised matches over the last 27 years. There's been very few that I have not seen. I feel like I was with The Undertaker throughout his career every step of the way. I'm sure a lot of you feel the same way about him. And hopefully, you know, you guys respect the career and legacy of The Undertaker as much as I do. And even though I think you can have your opinions on Roman Reigns, don't let it ruin this moment, because I think one day you'll regret it. I think one day you'll look back, if you're a fan 20 years from now, 30 years from now, you might regret not appreciating the retirement of The Undertaker, especially if you turn out to be a lifelong fan. So, you know, I just ask the fans to, you know, they can be pissed off if they want. I'm sure there's going to be plenty, but try to be a little bit mature about this and at least show The Undertaker as much respect as he showed all of us. You know, this is a guy that busted his ass, worked hard, remained in character, took things very seriously, especially when it came to his matches and the things he did, especially at WrestleMania. And, you know, the way he treated that character and the way he made the whole thing work, you know, to me, that deserves every fan's respect. I mean, every fan, every single fucking fan out there, you know, needs to respect this guy for what he did. And tonight, that's what this commentary is about. So in a few days, I'll discuss more maybe about Roman Reigns. But tonight, I barely wanted to speak his name. To me, it wasn't about Roman. And this was the end of The Undertaker. So, you know, in that respect, WrestleMania ended exactly the way I think it should have, putting The Undertaker in the main event in his last match. That's what he deserves. He deserves nothing less. I'm going to miss him dearly. I mean, we don't see him much anymore, you know, maybe once a year, twice a year, something like that. So it's not like The Undertaker's around a lot anyway. It should be pretty easy to get used to him not being around, but just the fact that he's not around, just saying that The Undertaker is no longer an active in-ring competitor, you know, that's just, it's surreal to even say. I was wondering if we would ever see this day come. But anyway, I guess that's it. I will leave it at that. Very emotional moment. It will probably be a little bit more emotional tomorrow night on Raw. It will be really cool if they do a nice send-off. I would even like to see Brock get in the ring and shake The Undertaker's hand and show him appreciation. So I hope they have a Ric Flair or Edge-like type of ceremony tomorrow night for Raw, which incidentally, you guys are not going to fucking believe this. But because of my Hawaii vacation that's coming up in a few days, I actually have to work tomorrow night, and I'm going to miss the post-Mania Monday Night Raw. But I'll catch it right after it's over, and I'll be up at my normal time late on Wednesday, early Thursday with my review of Raw and SmackDown. Just a little programming note there. But I'm guessing tomorrow night we will see that, and we will see one more final send-off for The Undertaker. I think. I mean, maybe we won't. I mean, it's Undertaker's a different cat, and going out the way he did, that might be the end of it. I mean, it really could. I would like to see the whole love fest tomorrow night on Raw, but if we don't, it almost seems fitting that The Undertaker left everything right there in the ring, took his gloves off, his hat, his jacket, put it in the middle of the ring, and walked away. So, I mean, if that's the last we see of him, at least for a little while, or at least until next year when he goes into the Hall of Fame, I'll actually be okay with that, because it's probably what The Undertaker wanted, and it's, you know, pretty typical of him to go out kind of in an ominous way like that. But, you know, if we do get the big love fest and the show Respect tomorrow night, I'm not going to complain. Let's move on now to the rest of WrestleMania. I had to get all that out first. I mean, all that Undertaker shit, I just got done watching it, and I figured I needed to talk about that first. So why don't we backtrack and go all the way back to the kickoff show. They jumbled some stuff around, and they changed up the kickoff show from what was advertised. They bumped Dean Ambrose versus Baron Corbin off the main card and they put it on the kickoff show instead. And they moved Alexa Bliss versus the entire SmackDown roster to the main card. So I was a little bit bummed out about that. So the pre-show was going to be Neville and Aries and the Battle Royal and Baron Corbin and Dean Ambrose. The show opened up with Austin Aries taking on Neville for the Cruiserweight title in a really awesome match. I thought that was a perfect way to open the show. I would have preferred to see the Cruiserweight belt defended on the main card. I thought that would have been really cool, but I think it worked well in the opening match, and it was definitely a match to be remembered. Those two guys kicked ass in there. Neville remained as strong as always. I wasn't sure. I thought maybe he could drop the belt here. I did predict him to win, but I wasn't 100% positive on that, and he won. Pretty sure he hit him with the red arrow, although I don't know. WrestleMania actually spanned 2 days. This thing went till almost midnight Eastern time, so it was a very long show. We're talking about 7 hours? It was a long-ass pay-per-view, but I remember enjoying that Cruiserweight match, and Neville retained the title like a boss, and he keeps rolling, and I have no problem with that. Neville's one of my favorite guys right now. We then had the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, I believe, and this was pretty surprising as well, and I'm kicking myself for not predicting Mojo Rawley. I had a feeling that maybe he could be one of the guys to win it when they were... The way he got in on SmackDown, I forgot how they even did it, but I remember him doing a promo and being interviewed about the Battle Royal and how important it was to him, and then I think he had to do something to qualify and win it. Didn't he win like the 10-man Battle Royal or some shit like that on SmackDown? It just seemed like they were making a big deal about him being in it. So I did think he could be a Cinderella pick, and I meant to mention his name in my predictions, but I didn't. I thought he could maybe just be kind of like a dark horse pick, and he wound up winning. Here we thought it was going to be all about Braun Strowman and the Big Show, probably come down to the two of them, with Big Show putting over Strowman and letting Strowman dump him out. And Strowman, to me, seemed like the only logical guy to win the Battle Royal, but he got eliminated rather quickly, as did the Big Show. Big Show got dumped out early by Strowman, and then everybody, all the guys in there, like 15 of them, ganged up to throw out Strowman. And at that point, it was anybody's game. You look in the ring and you're like, shit, you got Sami Zayn. He would be the only one in there other than Luke Harper that I thought would make sense. And then I remember Mojo Rawley, and WWE cameras at the beginning of the Battle Royal cut to the crowd, and who's in the front row? His butt buddy, Rob Gronkowski. You know, great player, awesome. I try to draft him every year in fantasy football, but this guy is a fucking jackass. He just annoys me so bad. Amazing athlete. I'd love to have him on my team. I'm not denying his ability. He's just an annoying son of a bitch, is he not? Am I not crazy for saying that? So I knew that he was going to get involved. You know, we've seen Ronda Rousey, and we've seen a few other instances like this. So as soon as the WWE cameras focused on him, I'm like, shit, he's going to get involved. Mojo Rawley's in there. They're friends. Something's going to happen, and something did. So who did it turn out to be? I think it was Jinder Mahal got in Gronkowski's face, and Gronkowski ended up chasing him back in the ring after Jinder threw a drink at him or something like that. Took him out with a shoulder tackle. Mojo wound up eliminating Jinder right after that, and he celebrated with Gronkowski after the match. So, I mean, it was good for Mojo. I'm just not a fan of his, I guess. But his story is pretty good. He's not a guy that I would dislike or anything like that. He's just, you know, he's just a character on TV that, I don't know, I'm just not into. So nothing against him personally. As far as his work ethic goes and his drive and the story behind him and how he got to where he is, you know, it's a victory that he probably did deserve, you know, technically. But it was just one that kind of, you know, I wasn't that into. But, you know, he's a young guy that they want to push, and that's the point of the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, is to get somebody new over. Overall, not my favorite Andre the Giant Battle Royal, but I can't say that it pissed me off either. I'm kind of indifferent about it. So congratulations to Mojo Rawley. Now moving on to the Intercontinental title match. I had a feeling that maybe WWE was keeping this one on the back burner. They didn't really know which way it could go. I think Baron Corbin very well could have won the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania, but I think after the situation with the tag team titles, I think maybe WWE shifted some stuff around, and maybe they weren't quite sure who they wanted to have win this match. Because remember, last week on TV, all they did was a backstage or a via satellite interview between the two of them. So it wasn't like one guy got the momentum on the go-home show and it kind of becomes clear who might win at WrestleMania or something like that. WWE kept their options open by really not having either guy have a ton of momentum on one side going into the show, so we wouldn't know who was going to win. But this way it allowed them to have whoever they wanted to have win. And since they moved the tag team ladder match to the main card, and we were going to see a title change there. Maybe they decided just to have Dean Ambrose retain, beat Baron Corbin. It's a WrestleMania victory that Dean Ambrose needed anyway, and these guys can continue, and maybe Corbin can grab the belt off of him at the next pay-per-view. I wouldn't be surprised at all. But that match, you know, it was okay. I thought it would be a little bit more fun if they did it on the main card. I thought those guys could do more. I know it was a standard match, but I still thought they could have done a little bit more through the crowd brawling and shit like that. I expected to see a little bit more out of that match, but since they moved it to the pre-show, whatever, I'm fine with Ambrose retaining. Now we move on to the main card, the main WrestleMania card, and the opening match was kind of a surprise. They opened up with Shane McMahon versus AJ Styles, and holy shit, as would be the theme of WrestleMania this year, this match far exceeded expectations. I wasn't sure what to expect. Shane McMahon is not a regular wrestler, and AJ Styles is very, very good. He's very talented. He's very fluent. I thought their styles would almost clash because Shane is kind of a bumbling fucking weirdo in there sometimes, much like his dad, kind of clumsy looking. But a fearless risk taker who absolutely doesn't give a fuck. And he didn't tonight either. And what I liked about this match is they kept it, you know, a little bit more grounded. Well, I don't want to say grounded, but they kept it within the confines of the ring. You know, we hear the rumors of the WrestleMania set. One of the most beautiful WrestleMania sets, by the way, was it not? Wow, that thing was unbelievable. I can't imagine what it looked like in person. It looked great on TV. So this is up there with one of my favorites. I just thought they did an amazing job. They always do. I mean, millions of dollars are put into that. And I thought the WrestleMania set was awesome. But as I was looking around the arena, I'm looking at all the different things. I'm looking at all the different options of shit for Shane to jump off of. And what they did is they did a lot of crazy stuff, but they kept it kind of confined, and they didn't go off into the crowd. Shane didn't crawl up to the top of that roller coaster or dive off the big tower or anything like that. They took some insane bumps, but they kept it limited to the ring and the announce tables. And Shane had 3 real big ones. He did the Van Terminator on AJ Styles. AJ even attempted it on Shane. I think Shane countered it. Shane nailed AJ with it, and it looked good because I always worry that Shane is just getting a little bit too old to execute that move, much like the top rope elbow drop through the table. I was worried that he would even make it, but he did. He made it look really good. And so he took that big bump, nailing AJ there. And then he dove off the top rope onto the announce table, of course. And then he botched, or he didn't botch, he missed a shooting star press, for fuck's sake. I mean, Shane at his age, to be able to do that, to be able to take those bumps and then still execute a shooting star press was pretty amazing. He missed it. AJ was able to counter, finally hit him with the phenomenal forearm, I think, and finally got the win. But it was a very good match. I was surprised. I mean, it reminded me a lot of Kurt Angle and Shane McMahon, even though they didn't brawl that far out into the crowd or anything. It was just a good effort by Shane, and much better than I was expecting from him. And it was a great opening match to WrestleMania, and the right guy won. I mean, AJ Styles had to win that match, and he won in pretty straight up fashion and got the best of Shane. And now I almost think that maybe there's going to be some respect there, because when you think about their issue, where do you go from here once AJ beat him straight up at WrestleMania? I almost think that Shane McMahon might shake his hand and say, you know what? You know, I stand corrected. You are as good as you say you are, and I think you deserve a title shot. So Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton have still got to work out their issues, so maybe AJ can get right back into the world title picture because of Shane McMahon giving him some title shots. So wouldn't be surprised at all there, but all in all, very good opening match, and AJ and Shane far outlived their expectations. The next matchup is Chris Jericho versus Kevin Owens for the United States title, and the greatest thing about this match was Jericho's lit-up scarf. Oh my god, that was awesome. And him and Owens had a pretty good match, I have to say. Not a bad match at all, not one of the more memorable ones of the show, but still very good. And Jericho at his age is still performing at a high level. And it was cool to see those guys go out there and resolve their issues, sort of. And in the end, despite a few kickouts and shit like that, we did see Kevin Owens beat Chris Jericho. Wound up hitting him with that power bomb on the apron on the outside of the ring, and quickly snatches Jericho right up, tosses him in the ring, and crawls in quickly to get the 3 count on Chris Jericho. And really good match, and solid for the United States title. So we got a new champion, Kevin Owens. I predicted that match correctly as well. I kind of thought that maybe Jericho could retain and they could stretch this out a couple of pay-per-views, but, you know, I think giving Kevin Owens the belt at WrestleMania was probably the right move there, especially considering what Goldberg did to him at Fastlane. So I guess these guys might have 1 or 2 matches to wrap up their issue, and then we might see Jericho take off for a while. It's been fun having him back. He's been back over a year now, so I think he might actually be heading out here in a couple of months. But it looks like this Jericho and Owens program is starting to wrap up, and it's been a fun 8 or 9 months, I got to tell you. The women's title match was up next. Bayley, of course, defending the title in the Fatal 4-Way Elimination match against Nia Jax and Charlotte and Sasha. This match was pretty good, and I gotta say the best part was Charlotte's entrance. I think she had entrance of the night. There were a lot of cool entrants at WrestleMania, but I really particularly enjoyed hers. And don't forget, that was in Orlando. That's the very same building where her father had his very last match at WrestleMania 24. So, that's pretty cool. Orlando's pretty lucky. They got to have Ric Flair and The Undertaker's last match. That's pretty amazing. Even though technically it wasn't Ric Flair's last match, it was his last match in the WWE, and it was treated like that. So Orlando was a pretty lucky city, but I really liked the fireworks display with Charlotte. I thought that looked really good. I did predict Bayley to retain, and she did. I thought that would be the best thing for her. They want to make her one of the top women's wrestlers on Raw, and Sasha has won the belt a few times. Charlotte is already a 5-time champion. You might as well build Bayley's legacy, give her a big victory at WrestleMania. And I even threw out the idea of her pinning Charlotte for the victory. That's actually what happened. I think Nia Jax got eliminated first. The girls did like a triple powerbomb on her. And then Sasha Banks got eliminated after that. And then Bayley wound up beating Charlotte in the end. And how about Charlotte with the corkscrew moonsault from the top rope to the floor? Jesus. Good match by the girls. I was glad to see them put Bayley over here. I think it strengthens her career and her legacy, and it gives her a big-time victory at WrestleMania. And she is now going to be a woman to be taken seriously as a serious competitor because she's survived some title defenses so far and gotten the best of Charlotte more than once. So I think that's good for Bayley and what the WWE wants to do with Bayley and with the women's division. We then had the Hall of Fame segment where they brought everybody out, and I might as well mention a few words about the Hall of Fame. I sincerely apologize. Because of the vacation I'm taking next week, I was not able to take all the days off for WrestleMania weekend. Last year, I took Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday off, and I stayed home and I watched everything. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that this year, so I didn't give you guys a separate commentary on the Hall of Fame, but I will talk more about it in my next commentary. But I did watch the entire thing in its entirety when I got home from work. I thought I would skim through it. I thought I would fast forward through it a lot, but I found myself really enjoying most all of the speeches. I mean, I really did. I did not expect Beth Phoenix's speech to touch me the way it did. I loved all the things she had to say. She was so gracious. She looked great, and I loved the way what she did for Edge. That was awesome. The way she was thanking everybody, and then when she got to Edge, her husband, at the end, she had Tony Chimmel come out and do his legendary introduction of the Rated R Superstar. And I thought that was a nice moment between the two of them. I really like Edge and Beth, and I think they have a great little family, and I'm proud of both of them. And you have two WWE Hall of Famers under one roof, and I don't think that's ever happened before, and that's really awesome. And they live in my former home state of North Carolina. They got a little house in Asheville, which is just a beautiful mountain town, and it's super nice there, and it's a great place to live, and I couldn't be happier for Edge and for Beth Phoenix, and congrats to the both of them. Cool to see Jim Cornette back in the WWE and at the Hall of Fame. He gave an epic induction of the Rock and Roll Express. That was great. One of you had tweeted me that I guess he's signed on to do a couple of more things, and he's actually going to be doing a table for three with Eric Bischoff. I can't remember who they said the third person was, but him and Bischoff, that's pretty interesting. Diamond Dallas Page opened the whole thing, and his was wonderful. Eric Bischoff inducted him. Told some awesome stories, and then Diamond Dallas Page was very gracious, and he teared up a few times. You could tell it meant the world to him, and I loved watching his speech as well. And then, of course, at the end, Kurt Angle, who would have thought he would be that great? John Cena wound up inducting him. I think we kind of had a feeling John Cena would be the guy a few months back when Kurt was first announced, and I think John Cena was the perfect guy. But John didn't really dazzle us with his induction of Kurt Angle, but Kurt Angle dazzled us with his speech for sure. I mean, he did everything. He put on the little cowboy hat. He sang his Sexy Kurt song. I mean, literally sang it during his speech. Thanked everybody. A lot of Attitude Era guys. I mean, he thanked everybody from Mark Henry to Chris Jericho to Triple H to The Undertaker, Stone Cold, The Rock. I thought maybe he was going to thank Chris Benoit. I really did. For a minute there, I thought he was going to thank Chris Benoit, but he thanked a lot of guys that trained him as well. Rikishi even he brought up. A lot of guys that helped him out when he first started. And I just loved seeing him there. It's just so good to see him back home. It's just such a shame that he had to leave for as long as he did. But, you know, he's in the Hall of Fame now. His speech was unbelievable. Hopefully we'll see him on WWE TV here in the future, maybe in the general manager role or something like that. But, you know, Kurt Angle was great in his induction speech, and he drank the milk and toasted the milk at the very end, and that was awesome. And it just felt so good to hear that music play again in the WWE. We've been waiting a long time for that. Next up on WrestleMania, we had the Raw Tag Team title match. Holy shit. This was pop of the night. We just had a feeling that maybe, just maybe, a couple of brothers would show back up in the WWE after a few years. And, with the New Day hosting the event, they opened the show and they came out there in outlandish outfits and they just did a promo and they left and nothing special happened. And then here we are in the ladder match. They introduced the three teams, Enzo and Cass, Sheamus and Cesaro, who had matching outfits, by the way. I thought they looked great, taking on Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows in a triple threat ladder match for the Raw Tag Team title. And then New Day reappears after all the teams are in the ring. And I like what they did here because they came out in their gear. They came out in their wrestling gear. They looked like they were ready to go. And they said, hold on a minute. This match has just been changed into a fatal four-way. And I wonder who your opponents are going to be. And a lot of us, we kind of had a feeling this was WrestleMania. If they inserted themselves into this match, this is something that would probably just happen on Raw. So when they came out there, I'm like, oh man, they're trying to throw us off, make us think that they're the ones that are going to be in this match and the Hardys are going to come out. And sure enough, the Hardy Boys music hits and Matt and Jeff Hardy return to the WWE. Apparently Matt is fixed. He's been repaired, no longer broken. The old Hardy Boys WWE music hit. The crowd exploded. If there would have been a roof on that building, it would have been blown off. Easily the loudest pop of the night. I think they worked the night before with the Young Bucks in Ring of Honor for the titles, and they ended up dropping them, I believe. I could be wrong about that, but I think they lost and wrapped up business with Ring of Honor so they could show up the very next day at WrestleMania. And Jeff Hardy, Jesus, to see him back. Matt didn't have the big crazy hair. It was more slick back. Matt came out as his normal WWE Matt Hardy persona. So unfortunately, I don't know if we're going to get the broken Matt character or if we're going to get the delete. They did do the delete chant at the end, by the way, when they won the belts. I did see them do the delete, and WWE immediately cut to a replay, but you could hear the fans doing it with him. So I don't know if maybe WWE is going to try to work something out with TNA to where they can use this shit. I'm sure it would be pretty easy just to call up TNA and say, look, motherfuckers, what's it going to take for us to use these gimmicks? Do you want like $100,000 here? Is all 20s okay? Take the money, fuck off, let us use these gimmicks. They would be great under a real wrestling company's umbrella. I don't know why I didn't see this coming, because in my predictions video a few days ago, I did not know that this was a ladder match. I don't know how I missed it. I don't know how the fuck my dumb ass watched Monday Night Raw when all of these teams are beating the hell out of each other with ladders, and it didn't dawn on me that this thing is a ladder match. So I apologize for that. I'm a moron. But I should have seen it coming once they made it a ladder match. I'm like, well, shit, if the Hardys are going to come back, what better match to come back to than a ladder match at WrestleMania? They kind of have a history with that. Got in the match, worked hard, busted ass. Jeff Hardy climbed up to the top of a ladder and reminded us all of who he is, a crazy bastard, and dove off, swanton bombing Sheamus and Cesaro through the ladders. And Matt ended up, I think it was Matt that climbed up the ladder and retrieved the belts. And the Hardy Boys are your brand new tag team champions. Two guys that were not on the roster yesterday are now title holders in the WWE. And that was a really nice surprise. That's exactly what the crowd needed. That's exactly what we wanted. WWE, credit to them. They noticed how over the Hardy Boys were getting outside of the WWE. And they knew that if they brought them into WrestleMania, they would get a seriously loud pop. And they did. And hopefully WWE, or hopefully the Hardys, that is, will stick around in the WWE for a little while. This has got to be their final run. I mean, Matt's looking old. Matt's looking really old. Jeff, I think, can still go a few more years. But the days of the Hardy Boys being regulars on television for years to come, I think, are far behind us. So maybe they signed another one-year deal. Hopefully it will not be like what the Dudley Boys did, and it'll be a year-long contract, and they will suck and they'll lose all the time. Hopefully WWE will take advantage of having the Hardy Boys back a little bit more than that. Maybe Jeff will get another singles run, who knows, because WWE always liked pushing Jeff Hardy, and the fans love him, of course, and maybe they can have one more run with Jeff before he hangs it up as well. But at the end of the day, I'm just happy to see them back, and it's cool. It was a nice surprise, and it was a surprise that we all wanted, and we got. And the Hardy Boys are the new tag team champs, and I couldn't be happier. Welcome back home, Matt and Jeff. John Cena and Nikki Bella versus The Miz and Maryse was up next, and this match was exactly what we were expecting. I mean, it was a great build. You can't say enough good things about The Miz for everything he did, making this match feel important. But at the end of the day, you kind of felt like you knew where it was going. All the talk of the marriage proposal, and, they've got that show going on, and you could just tell what was happening. So as predicted, Cena and Nikki did defeat The Miz and Maryse. I think they even double pinned them. Not only did they beat them, but they beat them rather handily, and really a glorified squash is what it was. And then after the match, you see John Cena grab the mic, and you're like, up, here we go. We know what's coming. And he told the story of how when she got her neck surgery that she was all loopy, and he's going to ask her a question one day, and he rehashed that story and eventually got down on one knee and proposed to Nikki Bella. So, you know, how can you shit on that? You know, John Cena wasn't in the main event. He's not shoved down our throats anymore or anything like that. This is something you got to be happy for them, even though this whole fucking thing is scripted. You know, I know the engagement itself is real. I have no doubt that John Cena and Nikki Bella are together and will get married. But I kind of think they were already engaged. I think maybe Cena proposed to her a few weeks ago privately, or a few months ago privately, and they kept it quiet in order to do the big proposal angle at WrestleMania, and it would make great content for the Total Bellas show on E and all of that stuff. To me, it just seemed like that's where they were going. So I think the proposal was scripted, but the engagement is real kind of thing. So it's half work, half shoot. I don't know what the fuck to make of it, but I guess John Cena and Nikki Bella are engaged. Good for them, and I wish you two nothing but the best. But John Cena, don't be surprised if all your kids look a lot like me. Triple H versus Seth Rollins was up next. This one was pretty good too, I have to say. I was surprised that we didn't see a lot in the way of interference. I mean, how in the hell did we not see Samoa Joe in this match? We did not see Samoa Joe on the entire WrestleMania pay-per-view. What the fuck is going on there? I mean, the fact that Triple H and Seth Rollins went out there and had a straight-up match kind of surprised me. I mean, I proposed all sorts of different finishes for this. But they really just went out there and had a hard-fought match. A lot of near falls, a lot of good stuff. It was non-sanctioned, but it wasn't as brutal as I thought. I proposed the WrestleMania 13 finish with Seth Rollins fighting so hard and his leg is so hurt and so injured, and Triple H locks him in a submission hold, and Seth is bleeding across his forehead, and he passes out in a pool of his own blood and earns the respect of the fans as a badass. And I thought that might be a fun finish if they wanted to give the victory to Triple H, but we didn't see that. Triple H put Seth Rollins over clean. Triple H put over a one-legged guy. He wouldn't shut up about how Seth Rollins has one leg, and Triple H lost to him clean. And he had no help. He had no nothing, no Samoa Joe. I thought we could see Finn Balor. I thought if Finn Balor was going to make his return, that this could be a good match to do it in, especially if Samoa Joe came out there and interfered, but he didn't. So I guess maybe we'll see Finn Balor tomorrow night on Raw. To me, a Finn Balor return would be perfect for the post-WrestleMania Monday Night Raw. I can't think of a better place for him to return, so hopefully we'll see him tomorrow night. But I kind of thought we could see him at WrestleMania, and I just can't believe that that Samoa Joe or nobody else got involved in this match. WWE did a pretty smart thing in this match as well to ensure that the fans actually cared, because there was a couple of times during the match that I felt that they were a little bit quiet. So the ending was perfect. They had Stephanie McMahon go through a table. And that was awesome, because that's exactly what the fans needed. It was the pop that they needed, and it led into Triple H getting hit with the pedigree and pinned. And Seth Rollins got the victory there. Great entrance with Seth, too. He came out there with like the Olympic torch, and he was dressed all in gold. Triple H was on a motorcycle with Stephanie on the back of it, and with like a police car or police motorcade escort kind of thing. So both entrances were pretty cool as well in this match. And overall, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for what it was. I thought they could have done more with it, but I wasn't terribly disappointed. I think overall, the match delivered about as good as we could have expected. And it was a big win for Seth Rollins. And it's nice to see Triple H putting over some guys. Roman last year, Seth this year. So that's nice to see. And I really don't have any complaints about the match at all. We have two brand new WWE champions. The first one is Randy Orton. Randy Orton did defeat Bray Wyatt and win the WWE title. I said in my last few commentaries that I was hoping that Bray Wyatt would retain. I predicted Bray Wyatt to retain. I got this match wrong. But I also said that it would be really hard to complain about this because of the storyline. When you think about how all this started, you know, this whole thing needed to end with Randy Orton finally taking everything from Bray Wyatt. I think that's what needed to happen here when you trace back the story and how it all began all those months ago. To me, this was the finish that we needed. The problem is, Bray Wyatt is a younger guy that's been over. He's respected by the fans, and he's got the support of the internet, where Randy Orton's been around a lot. He's had a lot of opportunities. He's won a lot of world titles. And, I was worried that some people were going to consider this a burial, when really, when you look at it logically from a storyline perspective, Randy Orton should have taken this title away from Bray Wyatt, and it's not over yet. I don't think anybody should panic, because what I'm hoping winds up happening is this is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, this is their first one-on-one match. Don't forget, Bray Wyatt's got to get a rematch here. But I have a feeling that maybe Bray Wyatt could take the belt back from him at the next pay-per-view or the pay-per-view after that. I wouldn't completely rule that out. I don't think they're going to put the title on Bray Wyatt for 1 month and then take it off of him, and that's going to be his only title run. If WWE wants to make him a champion, then they're probably going to want to make him a champion again. So I don't think this is the last time Bray Wyatt wears the WWE title, but, you know, I will agree that a part of me was hoping that he would retain. I'm just not complaining about it because having Randy Orton go over here, I can understand that. It's not the end of the world unless Randy Orton goes out there and RKOs and pins Bray Wyatt in a 5-minute match on SmackDown, and that's the end of Bray Wyatt in the title picture. If that's the case, then yeah, we can complain all we want. But I don't think that's the case. I think Bray Wyatt will not only get another WWE title shot, but I think he will win another WWE title in the future. In yet another match that completely and totally exceeded expectations, I cannot say enough good things about Brock Lesnar and Goldberg. It only went 4 minutes and 47 seconds or something like that, but it was the best 4 minutes and 47 seconds that I've seen from Goldberg since he's been back in the WWE. That's all I wanted out of them. I didn't want a 15-minute match. I didn't want a 20-minute match. We didn't need that. Those two guys couldn't do that. I thought if you give them a short amount of time, they can make it exciting, and they did. We saw so much more in this 4 minutes than we've seen from Goldberg during his entire return to the WWE. They both do their entrances. Paul Heyman introduces Brock Lesnar himself and lets the ring announcer introduce Goldberg. And then we get into the match, and Brock Lesnar immediately hits Goldberg with like 3 Germans. And then Goldberg, before you even notice it, he's right back up on his feet. Brock Lesnar is like growling after the 3rd German, and he turns around and just eats an amazing spear. Brock Lesnar knows how to take one of those spears like a boss, and Goldberg was quick. And he hit that spear nice. I even liked the way he rolled right through it perfectly, very fluent. Looked like a very good move. I'm like, man, you know, that was just such a great way. The crowd was into it. They all oohed and awed. That's exactly the way this type of match needed to be, with a couple of hard-hitting things to really surprise you. And Goldberg is a master of hitting those out-of-nowhere spears, and he gets up so quick. And I thought it was great. And then you thought Brock was going to go down again. I think Goldberg even picked him up for the jackhammer, hit him with that. And you're like, holy shit, is it going to happen again? And Brock kicks out. And then you're like, phew. And then they go on to do a few more things. Goldberg even hits a spear on the outside of the ring through the barricade. Hits a couple of other spears in the ring. Does he wind up kicking out of an F5 or does he counter an F5? I know Brock went for it more than once. And he wound up hitting it at the end, of course, but I think he might have even hit one more before that. But Goldberg did survive a lot, but he did take a lot of German suplexes. I think he took 10 of them. And eventually, Brock Lesnar was able to lift him up, get him in F5 position, hit him with it, and pin him and win the Universal title in a match that was 10 times better than I thought it would ever be. The fans were booing Goldberg. They were booing him at the Hall of Fame. They booed him during the introduction. And we've kind of felt that the fans are starting to turn on him. And the one thing I was worried about the most is that they would completely shit on Goldberg during this match. But the WWE, him and Brock didn't give the fans a chance to. I mean, they started so quick. They did exactly what they needed to do. The execution, I think, was perfect. I know that it wasn't a long match. Who cares? You trust me. You do not want to see a 15-minute match between these two guys. What we saw was what made it special. We're going to remember this now because I don't look at the match as something shitty. I don't see Goldberg being exposed in this match. To me, he looked like a badass. Even in defeat, he looked awesome. The shape that he got himself in for this program, I can't say enough good things about him and how much I respect him for that alone. I feel like his run was a success. A lot was riding on this match. If this match would have sucked a pile of butt, then I think that we would have all looked back and rolled our eyes on the Goldberg return. I know it rubbed a lot of us the wrong way, how he won that belt at Fastlane, beating Kevin Owens in 25 seconds. And what I was worried about is that Goldberg would overstay his welcome. But he didn't. The way he dropped that belt and the match he put on at WrestleMania, to me, makes the whole thing worth it. I think it was a nice, quick, successful run by Goldberg. They put the title on him for 4 weeks. They built him up the way they did at the Survivor Series and the Royal Rumble for him to go down to Brock at WrestleMania. And I thought it was a perfect little money feud, and it was good. And I think the match even worked in the placement of the card because, you know, if that would have been the main event, I probably would have been okay with that had Taker not retired. But I think it was perfect where it was, and I thought the match came off very well. And yeah, I know it was short, but it was supposed to be short. We didn't want anything longer than this, and I thought the whole thing went off about as perfect as could be imagined. The only problem here is now the belt's on another part-timer, which that kind of sucks too, because we don't know how often Brock's going to be around. And if they do push him or book him to lose the title at SummerSlam, potentially to Roman Reigns, that's a long way away. So that means we're going to have a situation on Raw where the world title holder is going to be on the show twice a month at best, and he's not even going to wrestle at all. So that's the only thing that makes me a little bit nervous here, is that we're not going to get Brock Lesnar. We're not going to get the title holder on the show every single week. So that's a bummer, but I'm still glad to see Brock win a belt again in the WWE, especially after his pretty successful run that he had a couple of years ago. So congratulations, Brock Lesnar, on the top of the mountain once again, or at least on top of Raw anyway. And finally, of course, the match that came right before the main event, the Roman Reigns versus Undertaker match, was the Alexa Bliss match, where she defended the belt against everybody on the SmackDown roster. This match was really just a buffer in between, or a filler in between the Brock and Goldberg match and Taker and Roman. I kind of thought we might see some surprises. If you watched the Hall of Fame, you saw a ton of former WWE divas there. I even saw Christy Hemme in the audience. Candice Michelle was there, Eve Torres, Kelly Kelly, and maybe even some others. So I kind of had a feeling that we might see a few surprises in this match, but given the placement of it, I think it was just to give the fans a breather. But they did give us a title change, and I did predict Naomi to win the women's title in this match, and she did. Naomi was out there kicking ass. She did great. Won back the SmackDown women's title, and I guess they're going to pick up where they left off with her prior to her injury, and that's kind of what I had a feeling they would do. So congratulations to Naomi. I'm very, very happy for you. So there you go. That's your WrestleMania in a nutshell. According to my Twitter poll, several hundred votes, it looks like it's about 80% positive, 20% negative. So overall, I think we all agree that this show was pretty good. It definitely exceeded last year's WrestleMania. I think we can at least agree on that. I know the show wasn't perfect. I know the main event is going to piss a bunch of people off. But when you look at the show as a whole, what it gave us, you know, and the surprises that we saw and the title changes and the good in-ring wrestling, don't forget about that. This is wrestling after all, and I think we should appreciate a lot of the effort that we saw in the ring from these guys and gals tonight. So, you know, when I look at the show as a whole, I don't have a whole lot to complain about. I mean, I've got some things, we all do, but, you know, it could have been worse. And, you know, where this ranks on my WrestleManias of all time, I have no idea. Definitely, it's got to be top half though. You know, if you split it into 16 good ones and 16 bad ones, I would think that this one would be in the top 16. So anyway, that's my opinions there. I did catch NXT on Saturday night as well. I should mention briefly about that. It looks like we've seen the end of Shinsuke Nakamura in NXT. He did lose his title match with Bobby Roode, and word on the street is he's going to be debuting on SmackDown on Tuesday night. So we'll have to see if that comes to fruition. We did see the Authors of Pain retain the tag team titles, which I predicted incorrectly. I predicted that DIY would win them since it was a triple threat match. And I also predicted that Asuka would drop the women's title, but she didn't. She kept on rolling and beat Ember Moon, and I'm fine with that because I love Asuka. She's probably my favorite female of everybody currently in the WWE, aside from Charlotte, and I absolutely love her. So the fact that she's, you know, rolling with that title and she's held it for a year now is pretty awesome. But I also want to see her on the main roster, so I kind of thought she might drop it so she could be moved up to the SmackDown brand or wherever she's going to land here in the near future. But I guess we're going to have to wait a little bit longer to see Asuka on the main roster. Overall, I give this WrestleMania a thumbs up. Looks like it was a really fun weekend. Really sad I couldn't be there. I got a lot of tweets from you guys that were attending WrestleMania weekend and Fan Access and WrestleCon and even the Internet Darlings show. Apparently, they did show my video on the screen. I'm still yet to see it. But a few of you tweeted me that you saw me on there and thought it was really cool, so I appreciate that. But anyway, I got to give this WrestleMania probably a B+. Can't give it an A. But it definitely a B+, and it definitely gets an A for emotion, that's for sure, because watching The Undertaker leave like that is something that's probably going to stick with me for a very long time. So rest in peace, dead man. Thank you, Undertaker, for everything. You guys have a great night. Leave me all your thoughts, comments, opinions about WrestleMania below, and I will be up here later this week with a joint Raw and SmackDown review, and we will recap the entire WrestleMania weekend, and I imagine it will be a pretty lengthy commentary. Because it will be my last one for a week as I'm about to go on vacation. So anyway, you guys take care. I'll catch you in a couple days. Until next time. Peace.